guys, and welcome back to HM Innovations. Today we have another project. It's called the Cryptex. The Cryptex was a device that was used a long time ago to hide secret messages inside the dials. We'll show you how it works, and we're going to show you how to make one at home using PVC pipes. And as always, if you're looking for additional help on any of our projects, or if you're just looking for additional projects, visit our website at hm-innovations.com. Now the tools and supplies that you're going to need are as follows: a 1 1 1/4 inch coupling, 4 1.5 inch couplings, 2 2-inch threaded end caps, 1 9-inch by 1 1/4 PVC pipe, 1 7-inch by 3/4 2-inch PVC pipe, and sandpaper and PVC glue. Now the first thing that you got to do is cut both the 1 1/4 coupling and one of the 1.5 couplings in half. We're going to put those into the end caps. Now whenever you cut them in half, we're going to grab the 1 1/2 inch coupling, and we're going to place that inside of the 2-inch end cap. Now, because it didn't fit the first time, we had to sand down the inside threads of our cap, and then we placed the 1.5 inch coupling on the inside, and we used cement glue or PVC glue to glue everything down. The next step that we have to do is going to be grabbing our 1 1/4 inch pipe, and we're going to fit that inside of our 1.5 inch pipe. Now, because naturally they do not fit inside one another, we have to sand down the pieces. As you can see, they're just a bit smaller or bigger to the actual hole, so we're going to go ahead and grab our 1 1/4 inch coupling, and we're going to place that at the end, and we're going to use that as a guide so we don't sand everything down. After it's been placed, we're going to sand this down until it fits into that 2-inch pipe, and we're also going to cut it to 9 inches. If you have a 9-inch pipe, then you should be good with that. Now, this is how it's going to look at the end. We went ahead and we placed duct tape at the very end to make it easier to hold on to. That's not including the 1 1/4 inch coupling. Once you have that done, then we're going to cut our 1.5 inch pipe down to 7 3/4 of an inch. Once you have this done, you can go ahead and test out and see if your pipe fits inside the 1.5 inch. So once you have it down and you can test it, and if it fits correctly, then you should be done with the sanding. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and keep on sanding down. It took us about an hour to get to the right level. So then we're going to grab our 1 1/4 inch coupling, and we're going to place it back onto our 1 1/4 inch pipe. And because we have duct tape on there, it was a little harder to get inside, but it's still fitting properly. Afterwards, we're going to place this 1 1/4 inch inside of our 1 1/2 inch end cap, or the coupling that we have inside the end cap. But because it doesn't fit, we're going to have to go back down to sanding this down until it fits properly. About 30 minutes later, we got everything to fit correctly, and we gave it another shot, and now the 1 1/4 inch fits perfectly inside of our 1.5 coupling that's inside of the 2-inch end cap. So we can go ahead and test everything out and make sure that it's working properly, and if it fits and everything's good to go, then you can go ahead and continue on with the process. Otherwise, like I said before, keep on sanding down until everything is working fine. Now the next step is grabbing our 2-inch pipe, or 1.5 inch pipe, I'm sorry, and we're going to cut a small gap down the center. Now make sure that you leave the small block at the very end. Just don't cut that off, because otherwise the pipe is going to collapse on itself and it's going to be a pain to get everything back together. And we also went ahead and sanded the top of it down. It's going to make it easier to put our pipe, the first pipe, onto the second pipe. It's kind of like a guide for it. So test it out and make sure that everything's still working fine. And you're going to see here, now this middle line is where we're going to have the gears for our locking mechanism. So we're going to grab our 1/2 inch pipe, and we're going to put it into the other coupling that we had, the 1-inch coupling, inside the other 2-inch threaded cap, and put everything together, and it should look something like this. The next step is grabbing the 1.5 inch coupling and try to fit it into the 2-inch pipe, but because it didn't work, we have to sand down the inner lip, otherwise it's not going to fit properly. Once you have it done, it should be ready to go. So we can put everything together. The 1.5 inch couplings are going to go inside, and then on the outside we're going to have the 2-inch couplings. Those are going to be the actual dials. So the next step is grabbing the 1 and 1.5, and we're going to cut 3/4 of an inch segments. So we're going to have, and then we're going to grab the 2-inch couplings and we're going to cut 1-inch segments off of that. After you're done, you're going to have a total of 12. You're going to have 6 2-inch couplings and 6 1 1/4 inch couplings. And we're going to have to cut a small gap into the 1/4 couplings. And that's because that's where we're going to have the dials, and that's going to be the inner dial. And because the couplings are going to go inside of our PVC pipe, or the inner part, we're going to have to make sure that they fit correctly and they slide correctly. So you can test that out. Now also, because the 1/4 inch coupling doesn't fit inside of the 2-inch coupling, we had to use duct tape to hold them down and close the gap. Afterwards we can go ahead and test it back, and you're going to drill holes into the center tube by separating the couplings, and that's where your nails are going to go, or screws, whichever one you're going to be using. So as you can see here, we have the holes in the center tube, and then we're going to put screws to work as our locking mechanism. So afterwards you can put everything together and see how the dials are going to work, and you can test to see if they're still moving smoothly or if you need to do some modification. The next step is grabbing the center pipe, the one that has the duct tape, and we're going to put it inside of our 2-inch coupling. Now you have to leave a small gap at the end because that's where your screws are going to go, and you're going to put everything together, and there's going to be an outer lip. Now we have to glue down a stopper or a lip holder at the very end, otherwise the dials are going to come right off whenever you open up your Cryptex. So the next thing is putting in your code and closing it down, and you can move the code around, kind of like to test it and see if it's going to be working properly. And as you can see, it doesn't open until you have the right code. So we line up our dials, and you can pull it apart, and that's it. That's how you make a Cryptex. Obviously we're not going to leave it like this because that's not very cryptic, so we went ahead and decorated our Cryptex, and when we were done, it ended up like this. We have all of our letters, and all you have to do is put in the right code in order for it to open. Now you can be creative and hide whatever you want inside of here. If you don't want your parents finding something, or if you don't want people finding something inside your dorm, you can be creative with it. Have fun.